I'm not going to be able to match the exciting speech the last speaker gave. Mine subject is a rather boring one, but it still has great implications. And that is, it's really an electoral system I'm going to talk about, that's called direct democracy. As I say, you can't make discussion of an electoral system as exciting as the speech we just heard. But here goes. What is direct democracy? Before I say what that is, let's just remind ourselves what we have at the moment. What we have is parliamentary government, and that it means we elect politicians every 4 or 5 years, and we don't have any say on the policies they follow once they're elected. In other words, they're free agents once they're elected. Sovereignty is vested in those 650 men and women who now comprise our parliament. That's called parliamentary government. They also try to call it parliamentary democracy. It's just conceivable it could be if the MPs actually listened to us rather than to their whips. But of course we all know, or think we know, that really they're more important to them to get on a career progression.
I apologise for that, sorry.
That's all right. And so it doesn't really work out as it ought to work out, as it says on the tin. So what we have is parliamentary government. I refuse to call it parliamentary democracy. It's parliamentary government. And what we've done is to repose, it's an improvement on monarchical government in the sense that all power rested with the monarch up to, say, 500, King Henry VIII and so forth, around that time and earlier. All power rested with him. After the English Revolution of when Charles's head was chopped off, 1645 or thereabouts, power went from the king to Parliament, to several hundred MPs at that time. And there's only been a very slow evolution of control from the public since that time. What we have now, as I say, is called parliamentary democracy, but it really is a very faulty. It could be democratic if only the MPs actually listen to what we want instead of doing what they're told by their whips. So it's a very inadequate form of democracy we have. And direct democracy effectively says this, that perhaps I describe it the way the Swiss have it. What the Swiss have is a system whereby any individual voter, any one of you in this room who is fed up about something, could petition for a referendum on that subject. Now, the petitions can take two forms. One is called an initiative, in which you introduce new laws, and the other is where you get rid of old unwanted laws. It's that one I want to focus on. So under the Swiss system then, a single individual, like Ron here, go around collecting signatures. It's a big task. In Switzerland it'd be 50,000 signatures. Over here, that's called the threshold, by the way. You must get a threshold of signatures. In Switzerland, 50,000. At that point, if you can get support from 50,000 electors signing your petition, the Constitution of Switzerland requires that a referendum be called on that particular law or treaties as well as laws. The Swiss have managed their politicians twice decided to join the European Union, and twice individual petitioners petitioned the Swiss public, and the politicians were overruled, and Switzerland never did join the European Union as a result. So it's a very significant power. It's the power to make our politicians accountable to us, and that's what we lack at the moment. So that's the general idea then. You get a petition going on your pet subject. If it's banning fox hunting, I'm afraid fox hunters may find fox hunting goes. You have to take the rough with the smooth. But if your petition was to remove one of the race laws, I think you might well win. So you have to decide whether winning on fox hunting and winning on removing the race laws is more important to you. To me, it's very important to be able to repeal these iniquitous laws that we have had imposed upon us, as well as many others, like the Macpherson report, or laws that stem from that report. So that's the notion then, that we have a threshold number of electors. In this country it would have to be something like perhaps 100,000 or 200,000 or 300,000. If you get that number to sign your petition, then a referendum is called, and the public then decide what happens next. So that's essentially the difference. You also have this other form of petitioning where you have what is called an initiative. This is where you propose a new law. If you want to, I don't know, protect hedgehogs from something or other, then you might get a petition for a new law, as opposed to being an old law. So the Swiss system frequently repeals old laws, but also introduces new laws sometimes. I've got one here, for example, where they have one, I'm not sure what happened as a result of it, but they it's a very interesting one. They had a petition to define what is meant by a Swiss citizen. Now, I think if we had a petition to define what is meant by a British citizen, then I think we might find that perceptions change very quickly about what we thought was a British citizen. And so you see from that's a petition, an initiative rather than a removal of an existing law. But the more straightforward one that most easily explained to people outside who haven't thought about this is the one where you remove an existing law or a treaty. That is an extremely powerful tool, and what it will do is, it doesn't mean to say you have a referendum on every issue, as some people sneeringly say. Of course it doesn't. What it means is the politicians know that their decisions will be accountable to you, the voter, and therefore if they're bringing in a law strengthening the position of minorities, for example, then one of you might call a petition for a referendum, and if you get the signatures, a referendum will be called and their law will be overturned. Now, they don't like that idea at all, of having their laws overturned, so they'll be very cautious about introducing laws that they know don't find favour with the majority of the population. That's a very powerful tool. In other words, the politicians can propose almost what they want, and they do, really. Many of the extreme left-wingers, with all this nonsense about multi-sexes and 30 different sexes and all that kind of business. These cranks have a power to implement their ideas through getting them slipped into the manifesto of an election at an election time. And when we vote for that party into government, we are also giving them permission to vote in all the things that are in their manifesto. And many and varied other things they include in their manifesto, and it's very difficult to stop them doing that. Once that's in the manifesto, the government can feel free to go ahead and do it and say, we represent the people. We have to contest this vigorously, and I always do, if ever I get on, as I do occasionally, get on the radio, or used to, on phone-in programmes. I used regularly to get in and raise these sort of issues. So that's essentially what the initiative referendum is about, and what the straight referendum is about. The straight referendum is where you remove an existing law. There are many objections people make to direct democracy, and I'll just deal with one of the most manifest ones, most blatant ones. Hitler did that. Hitler had referenda and won them, and look at what he did. Now, of course, they don't bring out the point that the only referendums we have are of the Hitler type. It's the establishment that decides what the referendum subject shall be, and what the question will be. It's a bit like a parent giving a boiled sweet to a child. The parent can decide whether or not the child gets the boiled sweet and when it'll get it, and which flavour in particular it will have. That's how they treat us, the politicians. They say, if you want a referendum, well, we may let you have one, but you'll have it on our terms, and we'll formulate the question, and you'll put up with it that way, or nothing at all. So the existing referendum, like the last one in 2016, the big one, the Brexit referendum, yes, we did eventually win that one, but that was touch and go. I do want to pay a small tribute to Boris. I know he's not our favourite character, but he did, I think, manage to pull that one off. I think no one else, I think, at that time could have done it. So while I don't endorse Boris generally, that is one thing he did, I think, succeed in doing. So, but that's the old style, that's the Hitler-style referendum. The establishment decide what the subject of the referendum, when it'll be given, and they formulate the question. That's how, if you like, Hitler would do it. What we're proposing, or what I propose, and those who support direct democracy propose, is that instead of that, it'll be Ron here. He might have a... What Ron, are you interested in a new law? What new law would you like to bring in, Ron?
Oh, yeah.
Put you on the spot there. Hanging, yeah, okay. Yes. Well, in that case, what you do under the Swiss system is go out and get your signatures. I'm sure you get 500,000 signatures quite easily. And then there will be a referendum on it. And if you won, as I think you would, that would go through. So it's not that difficult for people to understand. They are already, through pop programs and things, voting in and voting out. What is it? That dancing program. There's a dancing program. They're always voting in people. So I think people are getting used to that idea, and many people will begin to understand that. I would caution against hanging, though, because I tell you what, the first people to be hanged will be the nationalists. So the critical offence in modern Britain, New Britain, is to discriminate in favour of your own kind. That is the capital. If there were capital punishment, that would be the capital crime, to show favour to your own people. Yeah. It's already a crime if you're, in many aspects, if you're giving a job to somebody or choosing in those sort of contexts. You can still choose, if you're picking a partner, or rather the partner can choose whether to consent to you being their husband, let's say, fairly freely. But in a whole range of areas, you'll find that you lost that choice. That would all be restored, I think, if we had the straight referendum technique. So I don't want to go on indefinitely.